We're all selfish, and we need to harness our selfish impulses, or we can't have a society. This is one of the main propaganda messages embedded in the capitalist system, and it's a total lie. The establishment treats us like we're the world's biggest rubes, born suckers. We'll believe anything. They say, Americans take care of one another? What a laugh! That'll never happen. Americans are too selfish. We're conditioned to have fatalistic, cynical responses to any suggestion that we can ever change anything about America's obviously broken, corrupted political economic system. But even worse, I feel like Americans have internalized these messages and have stopped believing in our ability to change anything. The mainstream narrative about Americans is that we are selfish. We are told that because we're all so selfish, it makes sense to base our society on harnessing that selfishness. Part of capitalism's propaganda strategy is to implant the idea in our minds that selfishness is a trait that everyone possesses and that it must be channeled in a positive direction or everything could crumble. It's a very cynical viewpoint, and it's just plain untrue. There's nothing inherently selfish about all people. Some people behave more selfishly than others. We all know this to be true. Selfishness exists on a spectrum, and not everyone is set on winning at all costs. Who needs selfishness? Capitalism needs us to be selfish. Capitalism needs us to compete, fight, accumulate, win. The selfish tend to do well in this society because capitalism requires competition. Someone has to win. Someone has to lose. Capitalism requires winners to put themselves and their personal needs ahead of others in order to achieve. And yet, in capitalism, the losers are just important as the winners. It's like George Carlin once said, the upper class keeps all of the money, pays none of the taxes. The middle class pays all the taxes, does all the work. The poor are there just to scare the shit out of the middle class. The homeless, the hungry, the poverty-stricken exist mostly as a living threat, an example of what awaits you if you lose America's great capitalist competition. The rich don't want to end homelessness and poverty. Unfortunate people are a huge motivator to stay in the game. Sell your soul to the company store, or else you'll be living on the street. But this is merely a prefabricated narrative designed to keep the masses scared and obedient. The opposite of competition is cooperation. If it's possible to build a society on competition, it is just as possible to build a society on principles of cooperation. Because if selfishness is an inherent trait, so too is cooperation. Human societies require cooperation. Human civilization would never have reached this point without cooperation. Human societies are stronger when we cooperate. We've seen where competitive societies lead. They lead to winner take all. Billionaires possess vast, obscene proportions of our planet's collective wealth. In 2017, Oxfam calculated that just 8 people, the 8 richest billionaires, had more wealth than the poorest 3.8 billion people on Earth. Yikes! Not good. The sick thing is that with our planet's existing resources, no one needs to die of starvation or lack of clean water or lack of housing. All of these are problems of optimization. Is it optimal to shovel half of our planet's wealth to just 8 people? Especially if it means that half of humanity must live life on a razor's edge. We do not need to base our civilization on selfishness. We do not need to harness selfish impulses. What we're looking at in this obscene division between haves and have-nots is the result of those ideas. We should reject them. It's not even hard to do. We already know that selfishness is one of humanity's least desirable qualities. The golden rule held up by Christians as the essence of their faith says to love your neighbor as yourself. This directive is an explicit rejection of selfishness. If you call yourself a Christian, you should honor the words of Jesus, not find ways around them. And here's another thing. Because Christianity and other world religions view selfishness as a bad thing, when the US establishment tells us that we are all inherently selfish, the unspoken message is that we are all inherently bad. That's not true either. Human beings are not inherently bad, and you should reject any ethos that embraces such a stupid idea. Selfishness is the wrong principle to base an economy and global society upon. There are better, more optimal alternatives. Don't be a selfish prick. Please like, follow, favorite, repost, and go to my link tree so you can sign up for my free Substack. Let's make them pay.